Welcome back, dear friends. It's great to see you. In case we haven't been introduced, I'm Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and an appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic story readings, I provide role-playing game and movie reviews, and I get to talk to interesting people. And in this episode, we're doing an RPG review. My first for the Mutant Crawl Classics game line, and that is none other than Warlords of Atoz, written by Jim Wampler. Now, who is Jim Wampler? Wampler's written for a variety of role-playing game systems, including Metamorphosis Alpha, Mutant Crawl Classics, or MCC for short, Dungeon Crawl Classics, or DCC for short, third-party 5th edition D&D products, and the RPG zine Scientific Barbarian. And when I say he wrote for MCC, I mean he wrote the game Mutant Crawl Classics for Goodman Games, as in the core book. He created it as Goodman Games' radioactive mutant version of Dungeon Crawl Classics. While I haven't ran it, I've played in a number of Mutant Crawl Classics games, and they're fun. It's a quality setting, and it seems to get a lot of things right that previous post-apocalyptic weird fantasy settings just didn't quite nail on the head. I've edited a module for it, monsters and pre-generated characters for use with the system, such as Luau Luz, and everything feels right about it. It's usually a fun read. There's bonker stuff happening all over it, from random mutations to horrible random outcomes, to artifacts that might take you over, they might explode, they might allow you to one-shot the big bad. There's a lot going on here. So be sure to take your radiation pills before you set forth on one of these adventures. Now, who am I kidding? You are out of radiation pills by the time this setting happens. Mutant Crawl Classics, this game clicks in all the ways that a gamer might crave. It's got danger, it's got death that comes at you fast. Exploration, cool powers, apocalypse, weird fantasy, and making playing sentient banana trees not only believable, but enjoyable. Now let's see how this module sells itself. Reading from the back here, we see that this is a level 3 adventure, and the description we get is, when your hothouse jungle home is suddenly flooded with dispossessed refugees, they all tell the same tale. A conquering horde of warlords wielding magic boomsticks are wiping out whole villages and enslaving the inhabitants, all in the name of a surviving ancient one they worship as a god. The tribal elders send you and your secret team out to investigate, and if possible, the temple of the great and powerful Atoz. Now looking at the front cover of this, you see that big old head up in the corner? That had me wondering, does this have anything to do with the movie Zardoz? Which I love, and we'll talk about more in a minute. Well, dear friend Luau Luz said yes. As a matter of fact, Jim Wampler made this entire module as a send-up to Zardoz. And having read through the module now, that's absolutely what Jim Wampler did. So I had to give this thing a try. An RPG version of the John Boorman weird fantasy classic Zardoz, sign me up. I'm totally down for it, since the one and only time I ever cosplayed was as Sean Connery playing Zed from the movie at GaryCon 2019. Because on Facebook everybody said we were supposed to dress like that, I said I would. If I make a promise, count on it happening whether you like it or not. Now Zardoz, what is this? What am I talking about? It's one of my favorite movies from one of my favorite directors, John Boorman, creator of evocative classics such as Excalibur, The Emerald Forest, and The Tailor of Panama. This weird sci-fi apocalyptic dystopia film is 100% relevant to the world we live in today. Sadly, the British futurist filmmakers of the not-too-distant past saw exactly what kind of globo-homo cyberpunk hellscape we were going to be living in, and here we are. I never liked cyberpunk as a genre in total, though there's some good points here and there, and I certainly didn't want to live in it. I didn't want it to be my future, but that's what's in the cards, thanks to the World Economic Forum, the Bank of International Settlements, the Bush administration, and pretty much every Western leader. But enough of my digression, back to the module. So taking a look at the credits page, we see, of course, Jim Wampler listed here in a few different categories. For cover artist, we get Peter Mullen. I'd say this is a pretty effective work. It cued me into what this thing was going to be about. It emphasized the Mutant Crawl Classics aspect of the adventure and painted a weird environment for me to adventure in, which is exactly what the cover's supposed to do. For cartographer, we got Stefan Pug, and the one map we get of the giant flying head, known as the Temple of Atoz, is pretty good. It's got fine artistic elements to it, and it looks perfectly functional to me as far as understanding where the characters are going to be, where the NPCs are going to be, and what kind of environment they're going to be interacting with. Now for our interior artists, we've got Friedrich Doss and Cliff Karowski. And the interior art, well, it ranges from humdrum but serviceable to interesting with great detail. And with a page count of only 12, we do get quite a bit of art in this thing. Though I suspect some of this is for padding, which we'll get to later. Now the editor we've got listed as Rev Dak J. Ultimac. which I assume to be Reverend Dak J. Ultimac, who puts out the Dungeon Crawl Classics fanzine Crawl and has worked with Wampler before, such as editing the MCC module The Museum at the End of Time, available for free from Goodman Games. However, the editing wasn't great, or at least what made it to print wasn't. It may be 10 pages of text, we get numerous spelling errors and unclear cues on when to use the sidebar random tables. An important job of the editor is to ensure words are spelled correctly and the text is easily understood. This module had problems. And this may be my shortest RPG review yet because it's a really basic scenario. Now I know with 12 pages, you might say, Stephen, they only have so much room to do things. Well, a lot of modules have done a lot more with approximately the same page count and gone on to become classics or see play again and again. This, I don't see people wanting to come back for more than one round of it, and hopefully this review will show you why. Now, I haven't ran it, I haven't played it, I've just read it, but having spoken with someone who did run it, it was kind of lame to them too. So basically what we get is a micro dungeon with guards outside and 2 wilderness encounters along the way to it. The plot is, as it says on the back cover, there's refugees fleeing your village's way, trying to get away from bad guys taken straight from the movie plot. Roided up rampagers out to murder and enslave whoever they come across in service of this great flying head. In the movie known as Zardoz, here known as Atoz. And you need to stop them before they come and do that to your village. Because they want to enslave your humans, they want to murder your manimals, and they want to turn your plantians into kindling. That's not me being cheeky and describing what's going on here. That's literally what the module says the bad guys want to do. Oh, and farming, because apparently you've got to get some crop rotation going on. For some reason, it's never spelled out clearly in the text, but the assumption is that if you need to grow crops, you're trying to get a reliable food source to feed to somebody or something. I don't know, maybe the human supremacist army that Atoz is trying to build. I don't know. Wild conjecture on my part, but it just might be the case. I'm not real sure why Wampler decided to be coy with that detail in the module, like it's some great mystery. But there's a lot of things I don't understand about what Jim Wampler did in this module that we'll talk about. So on the way from your village to the giant floating head with the big bad in it, your party gets jumped by giant grasshoppers. They might be able to sneak past a slaver gang riding giant lizards, but probably won't. And I'm not going to go any further into describing those encounters because you know exactly what's going to happen in those encounters. Oh, wait, pardon me. One of the raiders has this sentient artifact arm that apparently Wampler really wants one of the players to replace their own arm with because hijinks will ensue. And it's a pretty powerful item, but it hardly seems like the most interesting thing that could potentially happen in this module. And at the end of the trail, the party has to sneak past this camp full of red mankini-clad bruisers to get into the giant flying head with the big bad while it's on the ground, loading and unloading supplies and weapons. The mask-clad mankini enthusiasts, they're not that tough. They're basically your low-level fighters. A couple hits, they're down, and they don't do anything particularly that impressive, but they usually have numbers on their side, so that is a threat that your players will have to think about. But other than their excellent taste in fashion, nothing special about them. Inside the head, you fight cargo bots in the level 1 storage bay full of guns and food, a medical bot in the level 2 biolab, and hostile holograms in the control room on level 3. Now these enemies, they got a variety of lasers, and some of them have sleep grenades that pack quite a punch. And there's a decent chance pure strain humans wearing the flunky fighters outfits can talk themselves past the bots, since they serve a deranged AI dedicated to pure strain human supremacy. If on level 2 of the giant head, human PCs get unlucky, the Metabot in the biolab will start swapping out their natural limbs for cybernetic implants and then chuck them into a fluid-filled stasis pod to recover. This is also where replacement PCs can pop out, because if a player character winds up dead, one of these embryonic sacs can burst open and spill a naked and then shock pure strain human replacement onto the floor. Now the climax of the adventure happens on level 3. Where the party confronts the insane AI called the Great God Atoz. And the introduction to Atoz has the most interesting flavor text we get in the module, along with the most flavor text we get in the module, so I want to read that to you. It's pretty neat. As you top the final ramp to the uppermost level of the temple, the Great God Atoz is there awaiting you with a look of serene calm, his thick forearms folded as he regards you with an amused look usually reserved for talented pets performing tricks. Atoz's bronze and muscular body is naked except for a gold-encrusted girded loincloth and a gold and black striped silk headdress that drapes over his neck and shoulders. He is accompanied by 4 equally burly human guards wearing girdled loincloths and high, pointed metal helmets. Each of the high guards of Atoz tracks your movements with a deadly-looking artifact cradled in one hand. The walls of the room are aglow with myriad artifact controls and banks, with the most complex ones featured on the southern wall behind Atoz. That wall also features 2 gigantic eye-shaped windows filled with some kind of transparent hard air barrier. You see dark black clouds rolling by outside. Atoz addresses you directly and says, "I can see that for local animals you have done quite well. Very resourceful. If you surrender peaceably now, I will see that you are well treated as favored pets in my warlord army. Well, the humans among you anyway. The rest will have to be put down or burned for firewood. So commands your new patron god, Atoz!" Now that sounds like a pretty cool setup for a big boss encounter, but it's not really. Turns out they're all holograms. And while they're hard to hit with an AC of 18, Atoz doesn't have an attack, barely any hit points, and his high guards are glass cannons. So if you can hit them, this fight's going to be over fairly quickly. And in this section of the module, this is also where we start to see repetitive sections of text. As the level description details what happens if the PCs win or lose, then we get a half-page explaining what happens if the PCs win or lose. Spoiler, both roads lead to the exact same place. If the party wins, Atoz beams himself back to his remote villain lair where the PCs can't touch him, and they're left piloting a flying head hell-bent on self-destruction. If the party loses, they wake up in those stasis sacks on level 2, an explosion happens for no apparent reason, which busts them out of their sacks and their equipment is conveniently piled nearby. Atoz beams himself back to his remote villain lair where the PCs can't touch him, and they are left piloting a flying head hell-bent on self-destruction. This sucks because it makes the battle meaningless. The same thing was going to happen no matter what the PCs did. Nothing they did was going to change the outcome. Just losing added one step along the way. And either way, the module mandates that the PCs damaged the flying head's control so badly that now it's careening out of control and will crash land somewhere. The important point here, it's clear to see to the reader, is that Wampler doesn't want your player characters getting a hold of a badass flying head with advanced technology. He didn't want them keeping the ship and assumed that the right way to handle this was to make sure to write into the module that there is no way they get to keep it. Never mind that there's not a point at which the party has to damage the controls. The module is just written to say that they did damage the controls. Now, I don't know why we're being forced to buy this ticket and take this train ride. Thanks, Obama. There's also no guidance on how the PCs would even damage the controls. It's just a command from Wampler that they did it. That's lame. I'd say chuck it. And if the party doesn't actually damage any of the control panels, they get to keep this thing. Now, that would be a big payoff and something really cool that the party would get so they can live vicariously in one of the significant elements of the movie. Now on the final page, Wampler says any artifacts the PCs did not have on them have a 50% chance of being destroyed with the ship. They are now far away from where they started and provides suggestions on where that could be. And we get more repetitive text about how the party has earned the enmity or wrath of a powerful patron AI, Atoz, who will come for them again in the future. I think this is cute, this line right here. And regardless of the level of player interest, Atoz is going to bother them in the future. And I paraphrase, whether your players hated dealing with Atoz or not, Wampler's commanding the DM to make him their ongoing problem. And that rubs me the wrong way, because if your players really didn't like some story element and they were annoyed by you having it there, it's probably for the best to just let that thing go. Now, I'm guilty of having done this to my players in the past, and I've had it done to me in the past. And of the few lessons that I've actually learned is that if my players really don't want something, I shouldn't rub their faces in it. If they don't like an enemy, a plot line, an adventure that you wanted them to go on, let it go. So I think it's weird that Wampler would take the time to harangue the DM that this guy's going to come back in the future. And there we're at the end. So to sum up my thoughts, Warlords of Atoz is just not a good module. It's incredibly basic. I don't know that having the association of Zardoz does anything for it. I think you could have changed out the window dressing of all this and it wouldn't have made any difference. The journey to the flying head is boring. The giant head micro dungeon just isn't that exciting. And the climax is rather bloodless since you're fighting against holograms and not flesh and blood creatures that are fighting for survival or domination. You're fighting a computer program and his fellow holograms. It's not that visceral of an encounter. And then you don't get to keep the really cool thing that he had to support his campaign of terror. It's a fun concept that suffered from half-ass execution. And I don't think the low page count's the prime culprit here, because there's plenty of text here. It's just not particularly well done, and as we touched on, we get about half a page of repetition. That half a page could have been used to make something interesting. And then we get a full page piece of art that I don't know is particularly exciting or evocative. It doesn't really help me get in the mindset of the adventure. Because why is this one mutant falling out of the sky? I thought the whole thing was going to crash, and that was the big danger. And like I said, the big reward I would have wanted as a player is to keep that giant flying head as my mobile home base. But the odd heavy-handed way that Wampler says, no, you don't get to keep it, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like he didn't want me to have fun with this module. But that's my reading of it. So besides holding on to the bitchin' head airship, what else would I do to fix this module? Well, I'd steal more ideas from the movie, because if that's what we're playing to, let's play to it. The encounter with the slavers in this module, well, it has the characters witnessing other people being slave-driven by the warlords on their lizard steeds. Whereas in the movie, it's very clear the warlords go on rampages all over the place, actively collecting the slaves. Why don't we see that? And why don't we see that happen to a neighboring village while the PCs are there? So they bear witness firsthand to the atrocities that these guys are doing. Or if you really want to ratchet it up, have the Seekers' own village be attacked by the slavers. Maybe they get driven off. Maybe they collect enough slaves and burn enough huts that they're happy enough to leave. But either way, give the player characters greater skin in the game, then there's some raiders days and days away who are bothering other people that you may or may not know. And building on that idea, and also working with the romance angle from the movie, have the slavers kidnap an NPC that's important to at least one of the player characters. Say that NPC had visited a neighboring village that got attacked, didn't come home, and so the Seekers have to go find out what happened to them. Why didn't they come home? And they get there and they see this torched village, and one survivor croaks out that they did see the NPC and they were handled by the warlords in the way the warlords would handle them. If they were a pure strain human, they got enslaved and driven away. If they were a manimal, well, they just got killed on the spot. If they're a plantient, they might have gotten driven back to the camp to be turned into firewood. And now it becomes a rescue mission, which really raises up the drama of when the player characters get to the head, because they have far more incentive to go in there and pass the dangerous cordon of the warlord's camp because they've got somebody important on the inside. And in the movie, Sean Connery's Zed. He's a bit of a rebel warlord. Perhaps there's a warlord ally they could win over. Perhaps there's a situation where they have the opportunity to rescue one that's been injured and heal him up. And in gratitude, he says, this Atoz guy's kind of a dick anyway. I don't really like him. He makes me wear this mankini all the time. And you know what? I'll get you through the camp and into the head, claiming you're my slaves, and we're going to bypass security altogether. Now that's an option the PCs have, because the PCs could just kill the guy out of spite. But then that's their choice. And it's not the illusion of choice, it's an actual choice. But then the movie also had some very deep esoteric angles to it, including explorations of meaning, the power of imagination, and literature. Without going into 40 minutes of speculating about tacking on subplots to explore that, or writing a whole new adventure to go with it, perhaps in the giant head, the only way to get from the second story to the third story is to solve a puzzle, a verbal puzzle. And a verbal puzzle that only makes sense if you're really stoned out of your gourd. So the player characters have to find some drugs in the medical bay, shoot themselves up with it, and then go on a psychedelic journey through some history of Atoz and the atrocities that he's been committing and his relationship with the creator that the DM feels like making up on the spot. Make it wild, make it loose. It doesn't have to make sense. A lot of people don't think the movie makes sense. And frankly, in a game or story, not everything has to make complete sense, but your characters have to be able to figure out what the answer is so they can verbally get past the door and into the command deck. I think all these would be good additions to fleshing out the module and drawing more of the strengths of the movie into your play experience. Now this thing is available on PDF through DriveThruRPG and Goodman Games Store. So if you want a physical copy, you've got to go to Amazon or find a retailer such as I did with Lou, because he's where I bought mine from. So have you played Warlords of Atoz? Did you have a different experience, or was it about the same as my read-through opinion of it? Did you do anything to make it more interesting? What would you do to make it more interesting? I want to keep the head, but is there more that can be done here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe to get more RPG reviews from me. And my dear friends, this is what I got for now. So until next time, I wish you nothing but the best.